Hello everyone, welcome to Nalanda Advantage. This is the third part in the series Cell, and today we are going to learn about mitochondria. We'll learn about the structure, its functioning, as well as few facts regarding the topic, and at last we'll take the quiz session. Let's quickly begin. Now the name mitochondria. Mitochondria is actually a plural form. The singular form is known as mitochondrion. Mitos meaning thread and chondria meaning grain-like structure. This is known as the powerhouse of the cell because it generates cellular energy in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Please bear with me, we'll learn about ATP in our further slides. This cell organelle is semi-autonomous, which means it contains its own DNA and nucleus as well as few ribosomes so that it can produce its own proteins. This cell organelle is present in both plants and animal cells or all eukaryotic organisms. And this is a site for cellular respiration, that means for burning of glucose. Now let's talk about the structure. Mitochondria is surrounded by a double membrane. As you can see here, the inner membrane as well as the outer membrane. It has its own DNA, hence it's semi-autonomous. The inner membrane, as you can see here, they are folded. They are folded in this pattern, right? They are folded in this pattern and they are known as Christy. They are rod shaped and the term mitochondria is given by Carl Benda in 1898. Now let's see let's have a quick view on what does the mitochondria does. Okay, what does it do? It is known as the powerhouse of the cell, very important, right? What does it mean actually? Any powerhouse means it provides us energy. So it burns glucose to release energy in the form of ATP and it stores its own energy as ATP. Glucose is the most simplest form of the food that our body can, after digestion it gets stored in the form of glucose and absorbed as the glucose. Hence all the food break down in the form of glucose and it stores later on in some other form. Whereas such as your glycogen, and in plants it gets stored in the form of starch. Apart from storing energy as ATP, there are various other functions of a mitochondria. As you can see, it is very much helpful in regulating your cellular metabolism, means all the activities that your body requires, and then it is useful in maintaining the set of reactions, or it focuses a central point of reactions between Krebs cycle. This cycle is also known as citric acid cycle. It is very much important in the generation of ATP. Various electron factors, your NADH and FADH2, they are produced here and they are more helpful in electron transport chain. Next important function is in the form of calcium signaling and storage of calcium ions. Regulation of the membrane potential and apoptosis or the programmed cell death. Mitochondria is involved in that. Apart from all these, few steroid synthesis, hormonal signaling and immune signaling is also done. Now we were talking about ATP, right? It stands for adenosine triphosphate. It is providing energy to drive many processes in our living cells, basically for maintaining our cellular machinery, such as the muscle contraction, the way you are throwing or catching a ball, writing with a pen, or you're facing the stimulus. Hence nerve impulse propagation is very much important. All the things, they are driven by ATP. Now ATP, as it consists, you can see here, it consists of an adenine base, sugar and the 3 phosphate groups here. Now this ADP, when utilized, it gets converted into ADP and AMP. That means one phosphate and then another phosphate gets removed subsequently in the use. It is also a precursor for DNA and RNA and used as a coenzyme. Now let's talk a bit detail into this structure. Let's talk about this outer membrane. Now it consists of a large number of integral membrane proteins called porins. The outer membrane consists of porins. This membrane is also in connection with ER or endoplasmic reticulum through a structure known as MAM or mitochondria associated ER membrane. This is important in your mitochondria calcium signaling, as well as transfer of the few lipids between and mitochondria. So basically your outer membrane also acts as a signaling in your signaling pathways. Next comes your intermembrane space. The mitochondrial intermembrane space is between the space between the outer membrane and the inner membrane. It is also known as perimitochondrial space, right? And the proteins are localized into this in a way it is like a cytochrome C complex, right? You can see here the inner membrane, outer membrane, few matrix is given, and the intermembrane space between the two membranes here. Between the two membranes here. Now let's talk about inner membrane. The inner mitochondrial membrane consists of a proteins with three type of functions. It's very important. Number one is your production of NADH and FADH2. That means the supporting your electron transport chain and redox reactions. Second important function of inner membrane is it is used in generation of ATP synthase and in turn regulation of ATP in the matrix. The third important function is specific transport proteins that regulate metabolite passage into and out into the mitochondrial matrix. So your inner membrane helps in transportations and few regulation of your ATP redox reactions as well as few proteins. Now let's talk about this Christy structure, which is the inner membrane folded for the surface area, for increasing the surface area of the chemical reactions. It expands the surface area, right? It enhances its ability to produce more ATP. These folds are studded with small round of bodies also known as F1 particles or your oxysomes, as you can see here. They're consisting of your F0 and F1 complexes. And what does the matrix do at last? So the matrix is the space enclosed by the inner membrane, right? You can see here, this is the space almost enclosed by the inner membrane. The matrix is important in the production of ATP with the aid of important enzyme ATP synthase. This consists of highly concentrated enzymes, ribosomes, your tRNA, several copies of DNA and its genome, right? So it is the basic metabolic machinery through which the proteins and various important cellular machinery or metabolism can occur. The major functions of these enzymes include oxidation of pyruvate and fatty acids and the regulation of citric acid cycle. Hence, in the burning of glucose, or acts as a site for burning of glucose as well as your production of ATP. Since mitochondria have their own genetic material and the machinery to manufacture their own RNAs and its protein. Hence, sometimes your mitochondria is also known as cell within a cell because it contains its own genome. Now, let's take quickly the few fun facts regarding mitochondria. Since they contain their own genome, it is an indication that they have been derived from bacteria through endosymbiosis, right? So earlier prokaryotic organisms, mitochondria has been believed to be derived from those microorganisms. Second point, the human mitochondrial genome, it's a circular DNA molecule which is about 16 kilobases and which includes your 37 genes. It encodes those 37 genes. Mitochondria came from cytoplasm in the egg cell during fertilizations. Hence, you inherit your mitochondria from your mother and not just from your father. So let's quickly take at the quiz session. First question that we learn from this is, what type of cell is mitochondria found in? Eukaryotes, prokaryotes, bacteria or primitive organisms? So obviously we know that mitochondria is found in plant cells and animal cells. Hence, the correct answer is eukaryotes. Second, which is true? Mitochondria has its own DNA. Mitochondria isn't an organelle. Mitochondria has 3 cell membranes and mitochondria does not have its own DNA. So we all know it that mitochondria is semi-autonomous, hence A, mitochondria has its own DNA is the correct answer. Let's quickly see the third question. What are the layered structures that look like folds in the mitochondria called? Now the layered structures, okay, the inner membrane that is folded into this layered structures, these are known as Christy. So the correct answer is our third option, Christy. And what is the major function of Christy? They helps in enhancing the surface area for your burning of glucose as well as production of ATP. So all this was the few major things, the categories and all the functioning and the structures regarding your mitochondria. I hope it has been clear to you. Please share your feedback. Please share your valuable comments to us through this in your YouTube, and comment us what else you would like to enhance. Provide us feedback and we'll definitely get back to you. I hope this series of this cell and importantly mitochondria is helpful for you. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Please share, subscribe and like our channel.